Hey guys, this is Doug with Fellowship of the Martyrs, coming to you again from the office here in Liberty, Missouri, the offices of Liberty Disaster Relief, where we have a food pantry. We're feeding now about 5,000 people a month, and housing and caring for and loving and free food and free clothes and whatever, and just blessing folks the best we know how. Anyway, I'm doing a video today. I want to talk to you a little bit about inversions, okay? Now that they probably got no idea where I'm going with that, but a lot of the problem that we have in this thing that we call Christianity, which is actually mostly churchianity, not actually Jesus stuff. But anyway, one of the problems we have is this pendulum that swings too far to one side or the other, and this happens throughout human interaction, and I blame Satan for it. But there is something about our nature that makes it easy for him to pull us too far one direction or the other and get us off balance. He's a master of judo, a liar, and a thief and a destroyer, and his goal is to use your own momentum against you. So whether it's politics, you have the far left, you have the far right, you have somewhere in the middle is probably a position that actually makes sense and is reasonable and is useful, but you have people on these extremes out on the ends, and the people out here can't even talk to each other at all. I mean, you get far enough out, they're just haters. I mean, there's no reasonableness, no teachability, no nothing. They've swung so far, it's just too hard to come back from there. The people in closer, they can have some conversation. The people right in the middle, they get along fine. They're all on the same path, and they're all going the same way, and they're the ones probably actually getting stuff done while the others are trying to figure out how to get along. Anyway, Jesus talks about the narrow path, that there is a broad way that leads to destruction and the narrow path that leads to life, and that few enter it. And I think in all of human interaction, that's true, that the vast majority of people are out on the fringes, on the sides in one way or another. Maybe they're not way out there, maybe they're kind of in the middle, but the narrow path is right down the center. Now, I'm not suggesting you look at this, I'm not talking about politics. Let's use something uncontrollable, okay, like IQ scores, okay? There's going to be, on this bell curve, okay, there's going to be those that are barely alive. I mean, 50, 60, 70 IQ scores, not functional hardly at all. Wearing diapers, can't, whatever. And then you go up the bell curve and down the other side, and then there's the Einstein 200 plus IQs, which you can't even talk to. They don't even make any sense. They wear plaids and stripes, and they spit when they talk, and they're scared to death of girls. But and nobody can get their head around what they're even saying, and they flunk them out of 3rd and 4th grade because they're just weird and they don't think right, and they think they're stupid, but they're not. They're just like at college level when they're in 4th grade. So now in the middle of the curve, I'll give you a bell curve here. In the middle of the bell curve are the vast majority of the people that are of the kind of average range of IQ scores, okay? Now, you have, over here, you've got, say, 130, which is, membership in Mensa, in a Genius Club or whatever. Way out here, you've got the 200 plus. Here's 0, which nobody's really at 0. They're pretty well brain dead. But somewhere in here, you got a 50, which would be highly developmentally delayed and very low functioning, okay? But somewhere between like 90 or 85 and 130 is the range where the vast majority of people are, okay? Now, this bell curve applies, when they talk about we're going to grade on the curve, well, we're going to make an average grade, what the average of the class scores, and then if you're above average, then you go over here, and if you're below average, you get an F on or whatever on the failing grade on the test. I'm trying to translate this to people in all kinds of countries that They don't understand A through F grading system that we use in America for school and stuff like that. But anyway, the point is, basically in any human, okay, height. There's going to be a certain range in which males in a given country are within this number of inches or centimeters in height. And then there's the tall ones, and then there's the short ones, okay? Well, it's no different with atheists. It's no different with Christians. It's no different with, any particular group. There's going to be a whole bunch of average bowlers, and then there's going to be really great bowlers and really horrible bowlers, okay. But those are, when we talk about IQ scores or height or something like that, those are things you can't really control. But the things you think, the things you have faith in, that you believe in, the attitudes, ideologies, whatever, those are things that can change as you go through your life. And what we see happening a lot is that the Christmas tree, a lot of times when you're a little kid, you're just under the influence of your parents, you're doing what they say, whatever, and then at some point you get a car, you get around other friends, and you start to try on these ideologies. Dad was a conservative Republican, and I don't want to be like Dad. He's boring and stodgy and whatever. So I'm going to be a vegan anarchist, communist, whatever. Let's try that on. So you go to college, you get all these ideas in your head. Your professors are pushing a liberal standpoint. You swing way over here to where you're just your parents can't hardly understand you at all, can't hardly talk to you, and you think they're crazy and whatever. And then you graduate from college and you got to get a job. So you take your earrings out and you cut your hair and put on some decent clothes, and you decide, you know what, maybe it makes sense to be a Republican. I like to keep my own money and not give it all away to somebody in taxes that didn't earn anything, as an example. But what typically happens is we have to try on different beliefs and see if it fits, and see if, okay, is this working for me? Does this make sense? Is this consistent with everything else that I believe? Because it's not just this tree. You have to get it to coordinate. The politics has to coordinate with the faith, has to coordinate with all the other things, and you have to somehow get them to all fit together so that the paradigm works. Now, as it relates to the church, okay, and let's just say Christianity or churchianity, but Christian specific. On the one hand, over here we have the ultra fundamentalists. Okay, absolutely sola scriptura, what the Bible says goes, inerrant, infallible. This is my Bible, and I believe everything in here from the book of Genesis to the book of Maps. Okay, I know those guys. And then over here you got the ultra liberals, sort of like the Quakers. There's really nothing, whatever you want to believe, whatever, Unitarian Universalists and other stuff like that. And that, and there's a pendulum somewhere that swings back and forth, and you may be one of these. Let's say this is the cessationist gifts of the Spirit aren't for today. The apostles and prophets aren't for today. There's, we just got to go sit in the pew, listen to the guy, learn our Bible history, whatever stuff, Baptist, whatever. Then there's the charismatic, gold dust, forks sticking to walls, God gave me gold teeth, feathers falling from the ceiling over the top craziness. Laughing, barking like dogs. Okay, it's all out there. I'm not making any of this stuff up. And this pendulum, on both ends, they're missing it. On both ends, they're wrong. Both ends have polarized because of the other one. This group says we look at them and we think they are so whacked. We need to retreat all the way back to here to be as far away from them as possible. George Bush was so evil. We'll vote Stalin into office because at least he's a liberal Democrat. Or whatever, they run to the farthest, most extreme possible position, justify whatever meanness, say whatever they want to say about these people because the gap is so wide they just can't, they can't accommodate that. Now, Satan wants us to do this. Satan wants to polarize us as far from one another as possible and fight over stuff. Now, this is the place of immaturity. Honestly, wisdom realizes what Solomon realized. In the end, obey God, follow his commands. That's the whole duty of man. Of the writing of books, the endless arguing, it's all vanity. There's no end to that. It's pointless. Just obey God. And that's the middle line down the middle, okay? So there's a sin in one direction, and then there's an inverse in the other direction. A good example of this is anorexia. There is a demon of lust that makes people obsess about food, okay? If it can swing you this way, it's obesity. If it can swing you this way, it's anorexia. It's just the inverse of the same thing. And ultimately, food has your full attention. And you're not focused on the cross, you're not walking toward the cross, you've got your eyes on food. And it's either the lust for it or an anti-lust against it. But either way, it's got you. Now, we do this in the church all the time. We see the abuses of the gift of tongues on this end, so we ban the use of the gift of tongues completely from our assembly. And that is an overreaction. That is the pendulum swinging too far to the other side. And what happens is, it's standard Hegelian dialectic. There's a problem. Satan, instead of adjusting to the middle, Satan takes your weight, keeps you going too far to the other side, to where you overreact and misdiagnose and come to the wrong conclusions. So, on one hand, you have a woman who is possessed by a spirit of lust sexually and is complete crazy nymphomaniac. On the other hand, you have the nun who hates men, gets sick at the idea of sex, and is completely unhealthy and can't counsel somebody or advise somebody in a reasonable, middle of the road, sensible, biblical discussion about sexuality. Both of them are out on the ends, but both of them have the same exact problem. Okay, both of them are making sex an idol and ignoring what the cross has to say. On one end or the other, they're both wrong. You with me? And I don't think people get that. I think that so many times we get legalistic. Maybe it's just especially the people I deal with, the kind of fundamentalist, legalistic, Bible thumper folks that are like, I am absolutely righteous. I have everything right. I have every answer. I got all, I am living a holy life because I don't look at porn. I don't look whatever. Because I threw away my computer and I never get on the internet. Okay, now I understand some people may be so weak that the best answer is just to throw away your computer. But a more healthy approach is to be able to use the computer for the good things that a computer is useful for, and have the self-control, the gifts of the Spirit, to not look at the porn. Or to see it through Jesus' eyes, so that if an email does pop up, which is fairly unavoidable, so somebody's going to spam you with something. Satan's out there constantly trying to churn this stuff. When something pops up, I just burst into tears for their soul and for the church that didn't go save them, and they went to vacation Bible school, but somebody sent them home to put on a sweater because they didn't look nice enough, and they never went back. And, it's real hard to get all excited about them when you're seeing it through the eyes of Jesus as a little kid that was harmed instead of a hot chick, whatever. So, what you need to understand is that Satan's working both ways, to the hyper-legalistic and to the hyper-liberal. To the do all things, whatever feels good to you, and to the don't do anything, don't leave the house, don't play cards, don't dance, don't, syncopated rhythm is from the devil, and whatever. And there is a middle ground, the narrow path, where you can be right with him, and it says that the man that's led by the Holy Spirit is not under law. Okay? Over here's law, Over here is complete lawlessness. In the middle is the Holy Spirit. Is that lawless or not? No, that's His law. Instead of legalistic, man-made, went too far law. We all chafe at the idea of, why do we have to get manhandled at the airport, little old ladies, little kids, as if we're all terrorists, just because a few bad guys did something? We're going to pass laws that disrupt everybody's life. Well, that's the nature of law. And your option is complete lawlessness. Well, no. Your option is to get right down the middle. But governments are horrible at that. Horrible at having an appropriate response to exactly the right people without it overflowing onto everybody else and somehow affecting their lives. But Jesus knows that's what pure, true justice is. To have the exact right response to the terrorists without everybody else having to have their life disrupted and getting patted down and everything else. Take the guns away from the criminals. Why do we got to take them away from everybody when they need to defend their house or whatever else like that? God is the one that gives the wisdom to help find the middle ground. There's a story about King Samson, who was said to be the wisest man. He prayed for wisdom and God granted it to him. 2 women come before him, and I'll put the verse reference up here. You can go read the story in context. 2 women come before him, and what did I say?
Samson.
Oh, did I say Samson? Okay, Solomon, King Solomon, sorry. Thank you, Rusty, for that footnote. And, okay, King Solomon, it makes more sense now. 2 women came to him. They both had babies at the same time. They were living together. One night, one of them rolls on top of her baby and smothers it, and takes the baby of the other one, switches them, and claims that this is her baby. And they both go before King Solomon to determine what do we do. Because they both say that the living baby is their baby. And they both argue passionately, this is my kid. She killed her kid and stole my kid. Okay, what do you do? Solomon prayed for wisdom. About did it again, didn't I? Solomon prayed for wisdom. So he looks at him and he says, this is very simple. He takes the baby, says, bring a sword, cut the baby in half, give them each half. One of the women says, fine, that'll be fine. The other lady says, no, give it to her, I don't care, just don't kill the baby. Solomon says, great, she's the mom. The one that didn't want the baby killed, give her the baby. And you know what? Even if she wasn't the biological mom, she's going to be a better mom than the one that wanted the baby killed, so give her the baby. Okay, that's wisdom. That's the middle road down. That's the appropriate, beautiful, simple, clear, a poetic response to a problem. Instead of swinging too far and saying, okay, fine, no women are ever going to have babies in my kingdom anymore because you're just going to fight about it. And, let's kill every baby in the kingdom and that'll settle the whole problem for everybody. Justice, true godly justice, is an appropriate response to the problem. Now, I had a comment today. Okay, well, that's a whole other video. We'll talk about God's appropriate response by never-ending punishment on another video. But what I want you to see is that you need to be really careful as the Lord begins to clean up your life and reduce in you the amount of sin and stuff like that. If you swing too far, you get to the point where you're pointing fingers at people who used to be like you. You're crucifying them. You're too bitter, too angry, too sure of yourself, too far into legalism, or the other way around. And it's a natural thing. This is a standard human progression. As we get older, we identify the fact that we're swinging sooner, and our swings are less and less and less. And as we get older, we take something, we test it, we try it, make our mind up about it, see if it fits our lives, see if it makes sense, see if it helps us get on the narrow path that whatever we're on, without the giant swings. We have to wear black and wear goth makeup and get gauges in our ears and everything and try this on for a while, and then we're going to swing the other way. And the more mature you get, the more it should look like this Christmas tree kind of thing, where it's closer and closer and easier to make adjustments. That's wisdom. Wisdom avoids these swings, and there's just the little ripples right there. And there are going to be challenges, and there are going to be things you have to decide on. Do I go to the left or do I go to the right? Well, hopefully, if you go the wrong way, you figured out in about a block that you're on the wrong path, instead of going 100 miles out of your way and then having to backtrack all the way back. Okay? Anyway, as the Lord leads, I pray that He would help you find that little path down the middle, that you would keep your eyes on the cross, that you would not look to the left or the right. He says that anybody that sets his hands to the plow and looks over his shoulder is not fit for the kingdom. Why? Because if you're plowing a straight line in a field and you look over your shoulder, you're going to swing that thing around to the side. He says, set your face like flint and don't look to the left or the right. Okay? That's what we're talking about here. The left and the right don't matter. Republican, Democrat, I don't care. I'm not any of those. I'm not part of that system. I don't want any part of that system. I'm about Christ. If He says to eat, you eat. If He says don't eat, you don't eat. But you don't get obsessive about food or coffee or cigarettes or whatever. You listen to the Lord, do what He says, and He'll direct your paths. So, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. Lots more at fellowshipofthemartyrs.com if you want to help and participate in all the different ministry things we do here. If we've been a blessing to you, you can send money to PayPal, through PayPal at FOTM@fellowshipofthemartyrs.com. The contact information is on our website, mailing address, and everything else if you wanted to help somehow. We've got 7 books that are on the website you can download free, and hopefully those are going to be on Amazon.com pretty soon. Who knows if anybody will buy any since they're on our website for free. But, go ahead and download them now and read the books right away because, they're only going to be free until Jesus comes back. So you want to go ahead and download them now and read them because it's a limited time offer. Okay, thanks. God bless you. We'll see you soon, hopefully, as the Lord allows.